Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis alongside Tom Vanderford for his weekly spot on the channel, and we are getting ready for the drunk uncle of college football games, and that is the Ole Miss Rebels and the Arkansas Razorbacks. How you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing great, man. I just hope we exercise a demon Saturday. Arkansas has been a thorn in our side for a long time.
Yeah, it's just a weird game, and I've talked about it with nearly every guest that we had on the channel this week, and that is the weirdness of this game. Like last year, there was 3 running backs that gained over 200 yards in that game.
Right.
The year before was like the 52-51 craziness. The year before that was Matt Corral's 6 interceptions.
Yep.
Hey, we had 7 overtime games back before crazy games with Arkansas was cool. This game goes back with weirdness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, forever. Forever. You know, since the hit. By the way, for all of those that don't know, Coach Henry, that's from Corinth, that used to coach at Ole Miss, he's bringing Creek Mitchell to the game Saturday. So Creek Mitchell, who made the hit, he's got some medical issues now, like we all do when we get older, but he will be at the game Saturday, so I hope he's our good luck charm.
Yeah, and hopefully we do not have to hit KJ Jefferson in the back on the 1 yard line like they did Quinn Grovey at that time.
That is true.
Yeah. We don't need a nail biter, Ole Miss. We just go through and do what you're supposed to do.
No, we've exactly. They, Arkansas is a very tough, very physical football team. They've got their good running back. They've got, their quarterback is a wonderful college quarterback. And he's got something to prove. He went to North Panola, so he's always got something to prove when he comes back home, to Lafayette County. So we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah, it should be quite interesting. Before we move on to Arkansas, because believe it or not, we are thinking of Arkansas, and we're not trying to just continually look back at it, but I haven't talked to Tom since the LSU game. And I'm curious of his thoughts on that game. What'd you think of it, man?
Oh, my goodness. It's like I text one of my friends. I had 17 heart attacks and 13 mini strokes, a baker's dozen on the mini strokes. But my goodness, what a game. My feelings are I thought Priestcorn made a difference on offense. I loved his blocking. He made some good catches. We finally utilized the middle of the field, so I know Bill Flowers is happy. Hallelujah. I think Trey Harris is awesome. I think Quinshon Judkins is awesome. The offensive line did a great job. Jaxson Dart did a fabulous job. It was a lot like that Arkansas Ole Miss game. It was back and forth.
I think it was close. I think it was close to that Ole Miss Alabama game from 2020, except it was reversed.
As far as the defense goes, you got to give props to Mr. Anthony. He showed up and showed out. That hit on the quarterback that he made was good, and I don't know if a lot. Excuse me. I don't know if a lot of people noticed, but he was the one that knocked the ball out of the receiver's hand at the end.
And your boy had a big day too, Ashanti Cistrunk.
I want to give a shout out to Ashanti Cistrunk. Here's a kid that's played for 4 different defensive coordinators in 5 years at Ole Miss. A lot of his friends left and went to other schools. He had a chance to go to Louisville this year, had a sweet little NIL deal. And he said, nope, I'm coming back to Ole Miss. And he made 2 big stops in the second half. Now, you can say without Trey Harris, we don't win that game. You can say without Jaxson Dart, we don't win that game. you can also say without Ashanti Cistrunk, who had 2 big stops in the fourth quarter, we don't win that game. So I am super proud of him. He's a good kid, and he stuck with it and stayed a Rebel through all of the transitions. He was recruited by McGriff. He was recruited by Wesley McGriff, and then he played for the guy that's FIU McIntyre, and then it was
Durkin.
They leave. I'm like you. When they leave, I don't care about them anymore. But Durkin, he played for Durkin, and then he played for what was that guy's name?
Partridge.
And now he's playing for the man, the myth, Pete Golding. So that takes a lot to stick with a program. And with all of these kids coming in from the portal and, fighting different people every year for playing time, man, I'm just so proud of that kid.
Yeah, he did a heck of a job. And we all thought that Suntarian Perkins was going to be the difference maker in this game. No, it was Ashanti Cistrunk in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss got 3 out of 4 stops in the fourth quarter. Kept LSU out of the end zone. Well, technically, they kept him out of the end zone 4 out of 4, but we're not even going to talk about that.
Right.
It's like, okay, NCAA, you tell me that we're not supposed to think that the referees are out to get us, and that this keeps happening.
I know he didn't even read it, but I did shout out to RG3 for having our backs on the officiating in that game. No. But goodness gracious. Oh, that was Ole
Miss is the most penalized team in the SEC.
Sir?
Ole Miss is the most penalized team in the SEC.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Do you know if you add up all the opponents that Ole Miss has played, their penalties would be number 1 in the SEC?
Wow.
Yeah, 21 penalties have been called against the team playing Ole Miss. 36 or 37 penalties have been called on Ole Miss.
Yeah, it's I hate to say it, but it's unfortunately for an Ole Miss fan, it's really a way of life.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
I can remember back when we were going to beat Alabama and they overturned Shea Hodges' catch. I mean, you can just go back over and over and over. And we don't get the breaks. And what made me so proud of this team? They made the breaks. They said a lot of teams would have folded. A lot of Ole Miss teams in the past would have folded and said, "Dadgummit, they're just this is it. They're not going to let us win it." But our guys said, "The heck with that," and they came back and they kicked butt. And I'm so proud of the whole team.
After the Alabama game, like half of the media people around Ole Miss were taking victory laps on us about us Homer podcast. We were obviously inflating everybody up to levels that Ole Miss can't possibly hit. And then a week later, they're just ignoring it and just back to normal. It's like, no, we were telling you the truth. We just weren't starting from the position that the other team is doing well because we suck. That is not our starting position.
Exactly. And, it's funny you mentioned that. You know how you can change your handle on Twitter? I changed it to Homer Reb because I am a homer.
Yeah, it's in the name of the podcast.
I don't care what Neil McCready says. I don't care what Ben says. I don't care what any of them say. Yeah, I'm a Ole Miss homer.
Yeah.
That's what's great about this show. It's a perspective show.
Yeah.
It's not a dissection show. It's not the coach doesn't like me, so I'm going to talk bad about him show.
Yeah.
It's what we do. And I love it. And your people, your listeners are growing. You're watching, you're getting close to 5K and you built it all from the ground up. And I think they're just a little jealous is what I think.
Maybe. I know they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're jealous on one side, and then Ole Miss doesn't necessarily like me on the other because they can't control what I say. Because I don't need the accents that they use on other people. So I can actually say how it is.
Yep. And
both ways. So even though I'm a homer and probably the most optimistic show that is out there, I don't have those strings that other people have.
none of the pay sites would ever entertain Bill Flowers or his, critique of our offense.
Even though he's dead right.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about Locked On Ole Miss.
Yeah. And it's just a perspectives thing. I'm thinking about during the bye week, by the way, I'll just break this news on here. During the bye week, I'm going to reach out to Ole Miss personalities and Ole Miss fans and have some new blood come on, like one-time type deal that want to give their perspective on the first half of the season. I do think that's important. So you're not just hearing the same opinions over and over again.
Oh, I do too. I definitely, yes.
Yeah. So that is my plan. So next week, even though there's not a football game, I'm probably going to be working just as hard, if not harder, because I'm going to try and find different people to put on the air than we normally have, just so you can hear what they have to say. And we're going to have Tim Thomas, because I'm actually going to have a basketball video in October with a football team that could be 5-1.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this Arkansas game. I mean, we talked about LSU and we talked about what's going on. This is a wounded animal coming in from Arkansas. Somebody FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act, Dan Enos, to see if he emailed students after the Texas A&M game. He did.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple students, to where you're arguing with 19-year-old drunk kids about play calling and things like that. You never acknowledge it. That's the same thing that I got onto after the Alabama game. You saw a little bit of that happening within our fan base.
Yeah.
You never acknowledge fans on Twitter when it comes to that, because nothing good can come from them. And once you hit send, a screenshot's forever.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just not worth it.
Right. Exactly. And, I've been a fault of that too. I've learned my lesson as well. So, but yeah, they are a wounded animal. They've got a really good quarterback, a really good running back, got a sound offensive line.
Yeah, not sound offensive line, but yeah, I agree with the other two.
They've had in the past, they've got some receivers and but they don't have the receivers like they've had in the past. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Their defense, I think we can exploit their defense. So, and I'll be honest with you, I think we can get some quarterback pressure. Everybody else has been able to. So I think we can get some quarterback pressure. We just got to be careful, because I've seen Jefferson turn many a sack into big plays. So we got to be careful. We've got to lock up. We've got to tackle well. And
you almost need to tackle the arm, the throwing arm with him.
That's perfect. That's, hit that arm. Do like they did, against Tulane there at the end of the game. Just hit the arm. Kari Coleman did a wonderful job doing that in that game. But yeah, I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm always, we've had so many weird things happen with Arkansas. I'll be glad when it's behind us,
Yeah, Arkansas and Ole Miss is like the Thanksgiving dinner of college football.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what it is. Something insane is going to happen. There's going to be an argument over carbon dating, which, by the way, that happened. There was an argument at one of my Thanksgiving about two people arguing about whether or not carbon dating is an accurate thing. And my whole thing was, who cares? Why are we arguing about this on Thanksgiving? We're supposed to be, it's a mess. But, that's what this game is. It makes no sense. Nobody necessarily cares what happens one way or another. It always gets hyperbolic and blown out of proportion.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's the only thing you can talk about.
Yep. I agree. I do think our defense is, and I don't want to jinx the defense, but I think our defense is, even with last week's showing, is much better than it was last year or the year before last. And I think, from what I saw of our offense, hey, Lane, I'm not going to say that Lane ran the offense and Charlie Weiss didn't, but I will say this. I saw Lane's influence on the offensive play calling more than I have since Matt Corral was at Ole Miss.
Yeah. Okay. The offense goes so quickly. Lane doesn't have time to call the plays. Anybody that thinks Lane calls the play. Now, Lane might have had a much greater role in scripting.
That's what
and things like that. But Charlie Weiss is the one that's actually determined which of the 10 plays to call in that particular thing, because he's got about 3 seconds to do it.
Exactly.
The reason Charlie Weiss has the job is because he has a photographic memory.
Yeah. I think exactly. And I think Lane he just had more influence in the game planning, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, the game plan was brilliant.
Yeah, it was. It was wonderful. Oh, my goodness. And I hope we have a good offensive game plan. And I hope that we have a good defensive game plan. I think we just went up against, I know we did. We went up against one of the top 2 offenses in the SEC.
Probably the top offense in the SEC.
I believe that
it's either them or us.
Exactly. That's what, and I'm a homer, so I say but yeah, they are awesome. Their quarterback was awesome. Good running game, good passing game. I mean, it went down to the last play.
The funny thing is, with Jaden Daniels, I like to give comps of other players whenever I see it. So everybody always talks about, because right now I'm on this phase where Jaxson Dart, I compare him to being Matt plus 25 pounds, and people are getting irritated with that, whatever. But Jaden Daniels, my comp for him is Johnny Manziel.
Oh yeah.
That is my comp for Jaden Daniels, except he's probably a better passer of the football, but his work that he can do with his legs, we tried to spy him with Suntarian Perkins. Suntarian couldn't catch him. I mean, that happened multiple times.
When in slow motion, that's the thing that gets me. He's so poised. He looks like he's going in slow motion. He makes everybody else look super slow. He's a generational athlete, I think. I really do.
Yeah, he might not be an NFL quarterback that has a 10-year career, but he could go Johnny Manziel and just be a guy that we talk about at the college level forever. Tim Tebow. Yeah. And that type situation. And I mean, he played a heck of a game, and LSU had that Brian Thomas at wide receiver.
Oh,
holy cow.
Nightmares.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, as good as they were, they probably weren't the best receiver on the field. It was a 90% Trey Harris.
Oh, golly, that kid. He reminds me of A.J. Brown, the way he can just make people miss. And, we are very fortunate to have that kid.
I'm about to do a comp that everybody is going to roll their eyes about. Okay. So everybody get ready to roll your eyes for what I'm about to say. His physicality, like DK Metcalf. His running with the football, like A.J. Brown, and his catch radius, like Laquan Treadwell. Boom.
I agree. And if he's healthy and Prescorn's really healthy, I think the Alabama game's different. I really do.
And Zachary Franklin still needs to get healthy too. He's playing, but he's not quite there yet.
Yeah, he's not quite there. You can tell. Can tell. He's a little slow. But, I think it's all going to come together, man. I really do. I think it's all going to come together. If we can just get past Arkansas and Auburn, oh, my goodness. We're going to be sitting pretty, I think.
Against A&M, by the way, I'm calling it right now. Clip this. Anybody that wants to do it for a bookmark this, clip it, do whatever you have to do. Texas A&M is the game that Zachary Franklin goes for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I hope so.
That's the game.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm all good for that. This is just so exciting, man.
It really is, because if it just goes chalk, and we are not overlooking Arkansas, we're fans, we can do what we want to, and fans like to dream. So we dream. We are about perspectives. And if it goes chalk, Ole Miss is going to beat Arkansas. They're going to beat Auburn, and they're going to beat Vanderbilt. Not saying it's going to be easy, but if it goes chalk, the Ole Miss is going to win those games. If that happens, the Ole Miss Texas A&M game is College game day for essentially the inside track for the SEC West. Because if Alabama loses to A&M, Alabama's losing another game. They're going to drop that.
Yeah, I think I read earlier that Milroe's questionable for the A&M game, and that the lines went down to Bama -1. So
yeah, if Milroe doesn't play, Texas A&M's winning that game.
Exactly.
Yeah, and even if Milroe does play this game, I'm not sure that Texas A&M isn't better than Alabama. And before everybody says, but Alabama beat us by 2 scores, Lane Kiffin is in his own head about Nick Saban and Alabama. He acted completely different that week than he acts any other week.
Yeah, I agree. He's, he's just a different person that week, and it's affected, everything. He thought he had him this year, but I think he may have overthought it because, there were things that we did against LSU that if we'd have done those against Alabama, it would have been a different ball game.
My thought is the Alabama game was the punch in the mouth that Lane Kiffin needed to tweak his offense.
I agree.
So it's probably a blessing in disguise. Who knows?
Yep. And I don't know who said it. It may have been you. But, some people were kind of ragging on Pete Golding. And I'll say this. Partridge doesn't win that game. Durkin doesn't win that game. McIntyre doesn't win that game. McGriff.
Definitely not McGriff.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know. Dave Womack wins that game.
I don't either.
So it was a big deal. All right. So before we get out of here, we need a score prediction from you for that game. What do you got?
Well, I'm going to go hard in on my Rebels. I've thought about this prediction all week. Ole Miss 42, Arkansas 17.
Ooh, okay. And my prediction that I gave earlier in the week was Ole Miss 45, Arkansas 35.
Yeah.
But that 35 is a late touchdown by Arkansas to cut it from a 17-point lead to a 10-point game. I don't think Ole Miss covers, but I think this is a comfortable win for the Rebels.
I sure hope so. I know the team wants it. I know the staff wants it, but us fans need an easy one.
It's this one, and then you got the bye week, and then you have Auburn, which that is going to be infinitely weird, and everybody needs to get ready for what's going to happen during that week.
He's going to Hugh Freeze is going to pull out every trick in the book in that game.
Yeah, including the forward pass, I hear.
Yeah, they may do that.
Yeah. And then they have Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt, if you're an Ole Miss fan and you overlook it, Vanderbilt, you do that at your own peril.
Exactly.
I do not care what Vanderbilt's doing, and they're not good, but there's no sense in overlooking them. But after that, Texas A&M, Georgia, that determines the SEC West.
I agree.
And if it happens, everything that goes the way we think it does, those 2 games could be monstrous. But Ole Miss has to handle business against Arkansas, Auburn, and Vanderbilt.
Wouldn't it be awesome if Ole Miss were the undisputed SEC West champs the last year of the SEC West?
Actually, what I want to have happen, I want Ole Miss and LSU to be tied for the SEC West, and Ole Miss wins the tiebreaker, because I've heard about that 0-3 game for 20 years.
Exactly. I like that idea. Hoping.
Yeah. LSU's got to get better really quick, but yeah. So anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tom Vanderford joining us like he does every week to talk about what we love to talk about, and that is Ole Miss sports. And that doesn't change. Anyway, Tommy, are you going to the game this weekend?
No, sir. I am going to still recuperate here at home.
Okay.
I'm I'm still not 100% after, the surgery, the chemo, the radiation. So I'm getting to where I can do all right. But when I went to the Georgia Tech game, I was only able to stay for a half, and then I had to go home.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that. Against Texas A&M, are you going to Texas A&M? Are you planning
to make that one? Yeah, that's going to be.
Just remember,
huge.
Just remember, if you already have tickets or if you don't have tickets, you can go to gametime.co, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your ticket. So in a secondary market, when the ticket prices start going up, you can at least get $20 off of that.
Oh, yeah. And if things go like we're saying, those A&M tickets are going to be salty.
Yeah, they're going to be up there.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, enjoy the game, Tom. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Hey, hotty toddy, everybody.
Hotty toddy.